Hello again, and thanks for joining. So I've got another old vintage Märklin model to have a look at. This one is number 3005 and it represented 262 class 23. Now most recently I looked at another Märklin vintage steam locomotive. Actually it was this one, it was a 210, and as you can see it's a bit bashed up. I did ask in that video whether to restore this model or just scrap it for parts. Thanks for all your comments on that video. Overwhelmingly I was told to restore it, and as you can see I've got absolutely no further with restoring this because it's just been sitting on the shelf. I've not had the time. Anyway, this video isn't about this locomotive, it's about this one here. But I'm hoping that this model isn't in the same condition as the one we just saw. Anyway, let's get this open and we'll have a look at the model and I'll tell you a bit about its history. So this box is not looking too good, it's a bit worn out on the inside. It does still have that fantastic artwork on the front, and I think under the flap here it's given a little bit of a hint about when this was made. I think it was maybe January 1959, going by that number there. And here is the model. It's certainly a very heavy thing. Well, at least the locomotive is. The tender's actually all made of plastic. And it's obviously a little bit smaller than the 210 we just had a look at. So a bit of history about this particular model from Märklin. It was first introduced in 1954, I believe, but it was only in 1957 onwards that the box was given the number 3005, so this one must be after 1957. And production ran through right the way to 1972. I think this is an earlier version because it has the word Märklin on the side of the cab, which gives it away as being one of the early production models, so 1959 kind of fits with that. In 2011, this model was re-released by Märklin with an all-new drivetrain on it. It was all digital and it had retro looks, but it wasn't the same model as this. This is an original, and by my estimation, it's coming in at 66 years old, so it's been around a while. Let's take a closer look and we'll see how it's fared. So there's no doubting the sheer weight of this model. It's probably all made in metal. Can't actually see any plastic on it with a quick initial look. At the front here, we've even got little metal wire, little markers here. Looks like we've got lighting, two bulbs sticking out the front there. It's a combination of black and red, as most German locomotives are. So this part here is being painted with black and the edges red. It's got the red buffer beam and it's got these buffers, which are metal as well, unsurprisingly, and they're screwed into the buffer beam. We've got this coupling hanging out the front, just a hook. It's the very early version of the coupling. It was fitted to this locomotive. And if we look on the smoke box door, you can see the number 23014. It's quite a nice amount of detail on that door, and we have these very characteristic smoke deflectors, which are made of metal as well and stick out quite a long distance out to the front of the locomotive, which looks really cool. Very indicative of this class of loco. As we look down the side of the boiler, you can see that we have some ribs painted with some red, and that started to go a little bit. It's not as bright as it could be, but they are actually painted not too bad at all. We have some parts moulded into the main piece of metal, including this whistle here, which is really small but just sticking up there nicely. But we do have a metal handrail running the whole length of the side of the model, which is an extra piece of wire which has been added on. There is a good amount of detail in that moulding, and as we come to the cab, we've got some more wire handrails going across and down here by the door. The back of the cab is blocked off with this piece of metal here, and you can see inside that we do have the motor in there, so there's no interior detail and of course no glazing either. The number's starting to get a bit worn on the side of the cab, but you can actually see Märklin there again. And we have some more red painting here underneath the cab and down onto these steps. On top of the cab is a little bit of detail, but not a lot. There isn't any moulding mark across the top of the boiler, which is great. That's my pet peeve, and this one doesn't have it. You will see it has a screw here to take it apart, and we'll do that in a little bit. No real difference on the other side of the locomotive. So as we start to look down on the chassis, this is nicely painted in a bright red colour, and we have metal pistons on this piece here in black. The pony truck here is all metal as well. It does have quite a lot of movement as well, and a metal wheel. The valve gear is all metal as well, as you'd expect, with some really nice red inserts. Even on this piece in here, which looks great, there is a bit of movement on that, but I think it'll work fine. And you can see underneath the boiler a couple of tanks picked out in red too. The main driving wheels, again, metal, and they have been painted red on the inserts. Look really good here. Obviously big flanges on these, and as you can see here, it's got the usual third rail pickup, so this will be an AC model. As we move further back, another pony truck here with a little bit of suspension on it, and a larger wheel, again all made of metal. This has got some brakes moulded into it as well, which is pretty cool. And it's just a stud coupling to the tender, which we'll have a look at in a minute. It says made in Germany underneath here. And it also says made in Germany underneath there as well. So they're very proud of this model, and quite rightly so. It seems to be a pretty cool piece of engineering. Let's have a look at the tender. So I always feel that these larger locomotives of this era from Märklin are pretty let down by the tender, because this is a plastic moulding and it feels very light and it doesn't really have a huge amount of detail on it. It's probably pretty prototypical, but it just feels a bit cheap compared to the Loco. It's got some lettering here which has been picked out in paint, but not very well. But it does have a pretty good representation of coal up there. At the back we have two lights which have just been painted in silver. We've got the number again, actually pretty clear, and we've got some detail of the hatches and boxes there. And it's not a great moulding, but it's not too bad. We've even got some ladders moulded in, but I think those could have been extra pieces which would have really enhanced it. Here the buffers are plastic, just part of the main moulding. And the coupling is a bit different. We've got more traditional type of vintage Märklin coupling on the back of here, which is attached with a spring onto the back bogie. And yes, we do have these two as bogies, and they do move separately. There's a nice amount of detail on there. This bit of plastic isn't so red anymore, it's gone a bit pink, but that's probably just with age. And we've got some nice spoked wheels there. They're not picked out with red, at least they're nicely spoked, and they revolve okay. Again, massive flanges, and also on the bottom it says made in Germany again. Quite a simple metal drawbar to the locomotive, but not much else detail on this at this end. So I think this tender is a bit disappointing compared to the Locomotive. Here's the tender for the 210. I'm just going to compare it like for like. You can see that we've got the same bogies here and the same wheels. It's a very similar setup, but of course the one for our 262 is a lot smaller. But I think neither of these two tenders are particularly well done, apart from the coal, which I actually quite like. Well, let's just take this screw off and we'll have a look inside the Locomotive. Well, if only modern locomotives were as easy as that to take apart. But now we've got it apart, you can see this extensive chassis and setup here. We've got the motor back here. It's a very typical Märklin motor of the time. And we've got the AC direction switcher up here. There's a little lever here which sticks up through the footplate, which you can press to change direction. And it just operates this cam manually. And on this one, it looks as though we've got a plastic gear wheel, which is quite unusual for Märklin this era. It's usually all metal, but you can see the other gear wheels are metal. It comes down to this wheel here, and then it's transmitted with smaller gears just between the wheels. So all three main wheels are driven. So a really good piece of model engineering here. And normally I can get this to work on DC. I don't actually have an AC set up at the moment to test this under AC power, but normally if I prod it with my H&M controller on 12 volts DC, I normally get some movement out of it. So let's give it a go and see what happens. Well, no surprises there. Normally Märklin stuff just works fine first time, and this is no exception. It just ran perfectly. And also both the light bulbs at the front also worked. Quite incredible for something that I think is 66 years old, or certainly well into its 60s. So let me get this back together and we'll put it on the scales and we'll see how much it weighs. So all in, this model weighs 542 grams. So Märklin's vintage model of this Class 23 steam locomotive, I think it's faring pretty well. It's certainly doing a lot better than my Class 44 that we saw earlier. This one has taken a few knocks. You can see some of the paint has been knocked off it here and there, but being over 60 years old you kind of expect that. But what I didn't expect was that the motor and the lights would work just perfectly straight out the box. It's a real testament to Märklin's engineering at the time, and something I really love about Märklin vintage models. They just seem to keep on going on and on. This particular one I think is let down a little bit by the tender, which is the same thing I said about my Class 44. It's all made of plastic and it feels a bit budget compared to the Loco. Imagine if it was made out of metal and had a bit more detail and definition on it, it would look absolutely fantastic. But that doesn't detract much from this model. It's still quite an incredible piece of engineering, a lovely piece of modelling, and a fantastic retro item to add to anybody's collection. I'm a big fan of old Märklin stuff. I think it's really good. I love how it's lasted so long. But what do you think about this Class 23? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. And thanks for joining me on my exploration of vintage model railways. I'll see you on my next video.
So model trains, model worlds, choo-choo, model trains, tiny worlds, choo-choo. So model trains, model worlds, choo-choo, model trains, tiny worlds, choo-choo.